That's just me. You go.
All right, can you hear me now?
We're good. All
Beautiful.
right. So, welcome back.
Yeah. What what do you want to talk about?
Um, I think we had kind of talked about continuing on our conversation about culture and kind of looking back to when we got into the business and talking about the foundations and what we would do differently
Yeah.
or same from when we started in the business now. So
Yeah, I
that's going
know
to be a stretch
you
on me trying
made a
to.
comment. You're like, "Oh, we've both been in this for a while." I haven't, but I will say I've got a lot of clarity over the last several months about what I like, what I don't like, what I think I would have changed, what I need to focus on, what I think is important, what I think is
So, okay. So where do you want to start?
where do
I
we
mean,
unpack this?
yeah, where do we unpack this? Because I think there's so
Okay, well,
much
let's
to
start
do
here.
here.
Part of what we talked about the other episode was building culture, and really talked about you and how to build a good culture out of the offices, and
Yep.
kind of what we think a good jump off point is to talk to some of the beginner to intermediate agents, um, and get them to think about you know running a business versus being an employee. And even the rookies, you've got to start coming in and getting used to doing some of these foundational tasks,
Right.
building from the ground up, right? Figuring out that you've got to come in and be talking to people and this and that, and we kind of figured that's your foundation, your foundational culture. And a big thing you talked about was building your own culture, right? How do
Yeah.
you want to run your business?
Yeah, and that goes back to, I mean, I think I said about the fact that we have had, we do business planning sessions, and those business planning sessions are meant
What if
to
you did culture
do
planning?
is culture planning is a tough like so
It's
so
I
I
think
think
it's less
I think that question becomes is do you
quantitative.
really want somebody to have their own personal culture, or are we getting culture confused with branding? Because we
No,
had
I
briefly
I
talked
think
about that. I think you're going to have a culture with your clients. If I was a realtor, and I think, like, and I was going back and starting over and saying, okay, you know what am I going to do? I think I got so focused at the beginning of the technical side of the business, I
mhm,
lost the relationship side of the business battle a lot.
I agree.
And I
Like,
think that's
from my side.
easy to do. I think it's easy to get caught behind paperwork,
Yep.
behind marketing, behind advertising, and forgetting that you're in a relationship business.
Yeah, but when I say to think about what you want as an individual culture, I don't talk about brand. I talk about getting people to think about how they view or envision their business. Meaning, do you view yourself as a 40 to 50, 60 hour a week person? Is that something you can commit to? When your business is established, what is this picture perfect view for your business?
Right.
That's what I think a lot of people don't think about.
Yeah, the serenity of when you get to that point where you're satisfied and happy.
I don't know that you'll ever be, but
Well, you shouldn't be.
it becomes a what does that vision look like to you right now? Like, if you could wave that magic wand and your business looked exactly how you wanted it today,
Oh,
right?
that is such an interesting question.
But I think that's what I mean when I say culture,
Yeah.
because this comes down to, and it's not branding. Branding is how you go about kind of getting your business. To
Yeah.
me, this is how are
That's
you.
being recognizable,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
branding. Yep.
And whereas the culture is I work 12 hours a week on my business because I'm able to offload.
Okay, so
Right.
you're
So
kinda
is
it's kind of the
somebody.
crossover then between, operations and where you end up with, technology, et cetera. Because I think that if once you get systems in place, culture comes easier, okay? Because you have the
Yeah.
timing to
It is
do
definitely a
it.
tough thing to define.
It is totally, and that's why I like this conversation because, like when you're thinking about in culture in your business, I automatically think to when I've
Office
got a
culture.
no, actually, from my real estate business. I mean, let's take the brokerage out of it for this conversation because I think that's completely different because you're trying to build a culture with 70 people,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whereas with the real estate aspect of it, you're trying to call realistically, you should try to be build a culture with 10 to 20 people, right? That like that the people that love you to death, the people that will go to battle for you, the people that you turn to say, "Here, hold my beer."
Yeah.
right? How, those kind of people. Those are your, those people that are going to come to you and say, "I got something for you. I got something for you. I got someone for you." Whatever terminology they
Yeah.
use, and all of a sudden now you're building this culture with them, and that culture is an expectation both ways. So it's easy for them to build a culture with you through referrals and being part of what you invite them to, and that two-way part of the conversation, or that their involvement in your culture. But for you to go and say, what do I want to be remembered for? Now, I have um a realtor that works for me that does outstanding marketing, almost to the point where she overmarkets herself. And that's not a bad thing. That's just, like she spends so much time doing that.
Mhm.
But she has mastered that culture part of that in her marketing, which is very, very difficult to do because, hi, I'm a realtor. Hi, I want to do this. Hi, I want to do that. It's easy to do those things independently. She hosts events, she talks to people, she does social media. She's got this culture of, and I think, is culture the right word, or is image a
No.
better word for it?
I think the image goes into the culture because what and I think of myself.
Okay.
When I say I got clarity, I have a very clear vision of how I'm building this now. So
Okay.
to me, this goes all the way down to the front end of my business. I've gotten clarity on how I want clients coming in, the types of clients, meaning, are you, again, if it's for you guys, are you focusing on first time home buyers? You're focusing on people
Yeah.
upsizing
Yep.
because the culture is dictated from that front end,
Agreed.
right? So you're saying, I only have X amount of my time dedicated to this, and the people who fit our tribe that we talk about,
Yep.
right? And so you go, okay, I'm only focusing on these, and that types of people. And then I think it becomes who else fits into my vision. And that's why I think you have to have that extreme clarity on yourself.
That's your vision and mission statement, though, right? You build that from, if you're truly creating a business
Yeah.
mindset, your first go at it's going to suck,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like
Oh,
when
yeah. I guess
because
that's something else to make note of is like, because this is your initial
yeah,
vision, mission statement, this is very possible that it's not even going to be anywhere near remotely
I've
what you end up doing.
I've been involved on 2 boards of directors, Community Living in Fort Erie and, the Niagara Association of Realtors, and both of them during my tenure on those boards rewrote their mission and vision statements and went to great pains to do strategic planning around that
Mhm.
stuff. And I think that's important because I
Yeah.
think that, without a mission or vision, which ultimately will lead to your culture, you're a rudderless ship.
Yeah.
You're
You've
trying to
got no
you've
direction.
got no direction. You're literally trying you're literally trying to appeal to everybody.
I did that because that's this year's
Ye
thing, right? Remember I
Yeah,
said the word of the year?
yeah,
Direction.
direction. And I think that that's one of the things that I think some people are kind of, they get stuck in this. I'm gonna do everything for everyone,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like, we as a brokerage, we do commercial stuff,
Mhm.
okay? And I didn't wanna bring the brokerage into this, but it's just an example. 90 some odd percent of our business is residential, right? Like 93, 94% of our business, depending on the year, is residential.
Yeah.
We'll do commercial,
Mhm.
but it's not part of our mission. Our mission is finding people
You're more
homes.
doing it as a favor for somebody.
Right.
This
Like
is
it's, I get a
exactly.
phone call that says, "Hey, I got this property," or "I got a client to
Mhm.
refer," whatever the case may be. I have a, this idea in my head that if we get outside of our mission, it becomes challenging. Right? If it gets outside, because it's not something that we do every day.
Yeah.
Your culture should be every day.
Yeah, and I think if it's outside of that, you're putting energy into a direction that you don't wanna travel in.
Oh, 100%. You end up learning on the fly when you start to do that stuff. And I think that's one of the challenges that people, kind of incorporate is, like, I'm a residential realtor.
Mhm.
I do commercial when people ask me to do it. And I can do it. Like, it's not like I don't enjoy it.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of the other challenge for me is I enjoy residential real estate. So
Yeah.
if I was going out and building my own individual culture to my business right now, that aspect of the business wouldn't even be part of it,
Not even mentioned.
right? If you go to my website, my finding families, I it's been so long since I've revisited because I work on the company so much. It was about at the time finding families homes
Mhm.
one transaction at a time, right? It was about the home aspect of it and families, and that was what I focused on at the beginning of my career. So I built this kind of culture of like involved my family at one point. I like involved my kids because I didn't have a choice, but because of their involvement, it kind of developed my culture for me,
Yeah.
which was an interesting exercise, I will say. But I think that one of the challenges that you know, realtors face is, trying to figure out what direction they want to go. And that will ultimately guide some of their culture as well, right?
Yeah, and
And it's
speaking
happening to you.
yeah, but speaking from experience, I know early on a lot of people kind of had that bug in my ear, like, you've gotta pick almost a lane, right?
Yep.
And I think a lot of times when you're jumping into things and somebody with authority is saying you've got to figure out which direction you're going to move in. You're going, well, shoot. Like I remember that brokerage that we were at. It was almost an exercise they had you do pretty early on, and I remember a few people based their entire branding on this culture
Eesh.
or on this vision.
Yep.
Meaning, somebody who is brand new to this industry said, "I'm going to focus on this very narrow demographic for clients."
Yep.
And then they based all of their branding around that. Hadn't really, I think, funded a file with those clients. Didn't know the pros and cons, the upsides and the downsides, the issues you're going to encounter with that.
Yep.
And I remember at that point thinking, like, this is early on. I'm impressed that you have so much clarity, intrigued if this is going to work out,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it did, um, but
That's niching, right?
very.
That's hyper niching.
But it was top to bottom. It was his vision. It was everything they did. They called themselves like white coat financial because they were
Wow.
focusing on doctors and dentists.
Oh, really? That's
It was
interesting.
something like that, and I was like,
Sure.
this is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so I think part of the other thing that a lot of people have to realize is that vision might become clearer as you get a few reps under your belt.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's that progression of you as a business owner
Yeah.
versus an employee, right? When you're a business owner and you're developing your business and your business model, realtors come in, mortgage agents come in, home inspectors come in. They all come in with this, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be the best at everything.
Mhm.
It is impossible.
Mhm.
You cannot be the best at everything because when you're the best at everything, you're failing at something because you can't learn everything about everything. You can become a master of something, right? Like
Mhm.
you can become a master of marketing. You can become a master of statistics. You can become a master of um, audio and video and
Sure.
whatever the case may be. You can put that tag on it, but ultimately, when you start to master one thing, something's going to get missed,
Oh, yeah.
right? And when you try to, be this, what's that expression? Jack of all trades, master of none.
So there's a second half to that saying.
What is that? Somebody said this to me the other day, and what is the second half
Jack
of it?
of all trades, master of one is oftentimes better than a master of none.
Really interesting.
Something like that.
Yeah, we might have it backwards, but um,
Essentially, the second half of the saying, from my experience,
yeah,
negates what the first half says. 'Cause
really,
people always say jack of all trades and master of none,
yeah.
and they say you stick to one thing, but the second half is, hey, being good at a few things is better than being just good at one.
Hmm.
It's
Being good if you, yeah, that's
it's
kind of an
it, it
oxymoron. The
it's
statement, right? Like, if you're going to contradict yourself, what's the point?
no, the first half of the
Unless I'm
statement,
missing something.
people end it with a period, but it should be a comma.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Um,
People are going
'Cause
to be making fun of us now because honestly, until probably the last month, you're the second person that said to me, "There's a second part to that saying." I'm like,
yeah.
I had no idea.
Um, But anyways, let's run this back to what we were thinking, which is what would we have done differently from the get go? And you had said that you focused tremendously on the technical side, and
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Early on, mainly because this industry was different than what I had thought it was going to be.
Yes, because you go with an expectation.
An expectation. The thoughts were that we operated more like an underwriter at a lender.
Okay.
That's sort of how I had envisioned it. Something comes in, you're reviewing stuff and you're putting together, looking at numbers. Does this make sense with this policy? Does that? And so earlier on, that was like, hey, I got to get these policies figured out. We got to do this. We got to do that. Um, and then the other thing was the brokerage that I was at had a really big focus on, and I mentioned it to you, but I viewed it as like a gotta catch 'em all mentality.
Yeah.
So they had a real big focus on meetings with realtors and kind of how to sort of get that ball moving. And I think in its uh, essence, it's a really good idea.
Yep.
Um, but I think the problem is we've kind of discussed what some of the issues were, brokerage and blah blah blah. The idea, like the seed of it all, was, hey, this is a good way to get in front of a lot of people, but you've got to be finding the people that you align with, the people
Your
who you
tribe.
like working with.
Yep.
And one of the things I told you that I have a tremendous amount of clarity over the last few months for is who do I like working with? Who just makes my life easy on your end of things,
Yep.
right? Because there are realtors I work with who uh, just make my life easier than others, right?
I think what happens when you get into those situations is you become aligned with that
Yeah,
person. Like, so, and listen, Sue and I are very much aligned when it comes to this stuff. It's customer driven, customer friendly, customer focused. Everything about it is about the customer. What can we do that's in their best interest? Right.
yeah.
So, and that's not always the popular position to take because I'll never forget. I was in Ottawa once and I had a broker record. I was a brokerage about the same size as mine, literally sit beside me. He didn't know who I was, but I knew who he was. And he said to me, we got into a conversation about a deal falling apart. And his exact words to me were, I don't care about the customer, I care about the transaction.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I said, I looked at him straight in the face and I said, you teach people that? And he said, yep. And I said, you are what's wrong with this business. We don't get it. We get paid to take care of our customers. We don't get paid to take care of the transaction. We get paid to take care of and protect our customers. And I think, yeah, it was mind blowing to
It
me,
is pretty wild.
right? But I think that what happens is we get into this mindset of we come in with an expectation, right?
When entering the
When
business,
we enter
or
the
okay,
business, we
yeah,
come in with this
definitely.
expectation that if I tell enough people I do this, and I'm a realtor now, and blah 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 blah, then they will use me. Not remembering the fact that everybody knows a realtor. Everybody knows somebody in finance.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody. And you have to figure out where you kind of stand out, where you separate yourself, what your culture is that you're going to bring to your clients. And I think the mistake that I made, and I know I made it when I focused so heavily on tech, was about that mentality of I'm going to throw everything out there in the
Hmm.
beginning. I'm gonna advertise everywhere. Now, I didn't go to the extent of doing billboards and stuff like that because mostly because it was very, very expensive. It's a very
Hmm.
expensive type of marketing. But I did a lot of digital marketing. I didn't do a lot of newsprint marketing. I did a lot of digital. And ultimately that took away from the relationship. And if I was going back right now, I would literally build my business around the bullseye on the dartboard and worry about those 10 to 15 to 20 people and treat them like they're gold. Those are the people that, you're taking out to dinners, you're having over for dinner, you're, sending the cards to, you're doing all of the things of building that relationship and that trust with those people
Hmm.
because the trust will actually earn you the business as well. So again, like my mistake was totally going digital and not building enough of that trust. But when I look at my business now, it's all repeat referral, right?
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
I've built that trust over time that I lost probably 7 or 8 years.
so here's the other thing that I've heard people say this before where they go, I messed up. I didn't do enough of whatever it is." Somebody might be saying, "I didn't do enough digital back in the day."
Yeah,
And then I think, and I guess I should be saying that this is primarily people who are in this for the last little bit,
yeah,
right? 10 plus, whatever we want to
yep.
call it. They'll say things like that, like, I didn't do any of that, or I don't do that because I've never done that. And it's like, well, it's never too late. Like,
No, no, and that's the thing, like, um, I see agents somebody this weekend, I can't remember, last weekend, did little trinket Valentine's gifts
okay.
to all their clients.
Yep.
Listen, those are great. I
Hmm.
think that they're a great touch,
Hmm.
right, for your marketing, and it's a great way to start a conversation. I am a I have 10 or 12 people that, you know, are in my immediate sphere. Those people get a real Christmas present from me every year,
Yeah.
not the same that everybody else gets. You know,
Thought.
I put thought into those types of things. So, like when they're referring me, I'm saying thank you all year long, right? Like I'm not just saying, "Hey, you know what? Like this is, it's Christmas. Here's
Hmm.
a gift," right? Like because that's just not the way it is. Sometimes it's just a matter of a card. Here, go have coffee, right? Whatever the gift is, somebody mentioned my name, whatever, and I send something off, or just thinking about you right now, postcards, right? Like there's a million ways that you can do it to say thank you to somebody. A buddy of mine, Dean Demizio, buddy, guy that I know from being on boards and stuff, um, insurance guy. If you even mention his name, you're gonna get a card in the mail with a Tim Hortons card in it. Thanks for mentioning me.
Right.
Didn't work out, but thanks for
Yep.
putting the thought out there. That kind of relationship building goes to the culture that he's created in his company to how to build that relationship. But I think that we get so caught up in, you know, making sure that we're in front of everybody, we forget to get in front of the most important people. So let's take a break there because it's been a little bit of time. So, and we'll regroup in a second.
Sure.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all
So
around?
we touched on how you kind of focused on one
Yes.
avenue when you were starting,
Yep.
and so did I. And now here's an interesting thing to kind of chew on is we're both coming at this from a perspective, right? We're coming at this, and you mentioned it from a point of a little more confidence.
Yeah.
And so I think the tricky part is, and I speak to myself specifically, is when you're entering, you kind of have to spend a little time understanding the technical side
Yes.
because people need to know that you know what you're talking about,
Hmm.
right? And I'm certain there are folks out there who can get by and got by without kind of having to
Learn it.
maybe build as much of a foundation,
Yeah.
right? But I
The
think
fake it till you make it crowd.
sort of,
Right.
and I think there's something to be said for that. But I do think, regardless of which way you slice it, there comes a point where you have to learn it, at least up to a certain point. I'm not saying you have to, again, speaking in my industry, have to be the best underwriter in the world. But you got to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You got to be able to have a conversation with somebody and to, off the cuff, be able to say, well, that I know why that didn't work,
Yeah.
or here's why this failed, or here's what you need to do. You got to have a pretty good idea. And
Yeah.
same with yourself. You mentioned to me on our commercial break, how if you were starting today, you would be approaching your entrance into this industry totally different.
Oh, 100%.
But now it comes from that point of confidence. And so when we're tying this all back to building the culture, I think the big thing that comes from being in the office day to day as a rookie or somebody who's in that middle tier is one, you're getting exposure to the stuff that you need to know, meaning the technical side that you have to know how to do
You
at
have to know how
least
to do your job.
in order to do your job. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to get your paperwork together,
Yeah.
right? Stay compliant and all that kind of stuff. But you're also getting to see how others are winning with the relationship building, and you're getting to see how others are maybe trying different tactics. They're doing, this for marketing. They're doing this for their outreach. They're doing this. They're doing that, and you're getting to kind of see one that people are doing the crazy hard stuff, the stuff that takes forever,
The stuff you're scared of.
the stuff you're scared of, the stuff that you didn't think would work, but all of a sudden did.
Yeah.
Right. So you and I had this conversation a few months ago because I had started posting a little bit more to social media. And I mentioned to you that I had somebody reach out that I was playing hockey with. And I was like, wow, that kind of worked.
Yeah.
The social media stuff starts the conversations because it all comes back down to
Conversations.
conversations, right?
So go back to that and to kind of mentality is so, and actually, this is a great example because I took a phone call a little while
Oh,
ago from Vanessa Wilson, who, when she came to me,
hmm.
she was a realtor with another company up north.
Hmm.
And she was an in-house, and she's going to lose her mind when I say this, but she sold trailers. So she sold Black Creek,
Hmm.
leisure homes, that kind of stuff. The home that is a permanent home, but it shows up on wheels. Okay,
Hmm.
she did that
The stuff that I
exclusively
hate
for
to
park.
finance.
Yeah, that nobody finances. There's only two companies to do it, maybe three now. But that was all she did, and she came to me and said, "I want to broaden
Hmm.
my market." And she said, "Here's what I'm going to do." And to her credit, I laughed at her.
Right.
Right. So because she had said to me, she said, "I'm going to do YouTube." And
Hmm.
I said, "Oh, YouTube, really?
Hmm.
There's so many other ways." Now, having gone back now and learned everything I know about YouTube and how it works and stuff, kudos to her for telling me, "Yeah,
Yeah.
Steve, you're a
Put a
lunatic.
sock in it.
Put a sock in it." Because today she called me, she said after 300 videos,
Hmm.
she has a true direct first client that she's going to get paid on because they contacted her because of watching her content on YouTube. That was a complete shift for Vanessa. Now, if you know Vanessa, she's a very outgoing person. She's
Hmm.
very boisterous. She's, she doesn't really necessarily care what people think about her. She does deep down, but on the surface, she doesn't. And so she basically said to me, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and I was like, "Okay, you know what?" Now looking back on it, she was years ahead of where I was on it. She's 10 years my senior,
Hmm.
and she just said, "I'm going to do this."
Hmm.
And she took an avenue to it, and she reset her business after being in the business for 10 years. So for her, her culture is created doing what we're doing right now,
Yeah.
right? She talks about her, what's going on in her business. She talks about um the neighborhoods. She talks about what's going on in Fort Erie, what the perks are, but she talks about the communities. She's gotten really really good at it, and she just opens up her computer and starts talking and recording. So she's put the effort in, she's put the time in, but she also recognized that what she was doing was kind of limiting.
Slow burn. But
Well, it was kind of limiting what she could and could not
I in the
achieve.
sense of the niche she was in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the niche was limited, right? So she wanted to broaden it. So she broadened hers, and now she's selling these people full blown houses. She's
Yep.
doing a ton of non traditional business for her,
Yeah.
'cause she was able to kind of
Sort of reinvented herself.
totally reinvented
Yeah.
herself. So I think anybody can do it. But if I were to go back and think to the culture of when I started, when you go and talk to a real estate coach, they're going to tell you 50% of the time you should be lead generation, 25% administrative, and 25% getting contracts signed.
Okay.
Something to that
Mhm.
ratio. I would split my time up in half. 50% would be lead generation, and 50% would be doing the technical side. And I would be looking at it and saying 50% is me running a business, and 50% of it's doing me doing my job
Working on the business versus in
in
the
the business.
business.
And you
Yeah.
have to kind of, at the beginning, in your culture, in your mindset, I think you got to reset and say, that's how you got to break it down. What is that day-to-day stuff that I don't have a choice. I have to do it. And what is the visionary stuff
Mhm.
that I want to accomplish?
Yeah, and so I know that that is a really good way to do it. In fact, I would say it should be 75-25.
Lead generation
Yeah,
versus, yeah. And I think you get to that.
because also part of it is you don't know necessarily the questions that are gonna come up
Yeah.
naturally in conversation, but I know for me, the brokerage we were at was purely virtual,
Yeah.
and I would have loved and benefited from an in-office
Yeah.
experience. And I know personally, I sort of I embraced when we kind of got our little
Your
thing
powwow.
together.
Your group of 3.
Yeah, when we
Yeah.
started that, it was what I needed. It resonated with me. We were able to first of all, you're seeing 3 different people and the 3 different types of scenarios and clients that they're bringing into the
Yep,
world or
yep,
bringing to the table.
yep.
And we had very, very different scenarios. Even to this day, Sue and I have very, very different.
100%. That's also partially because of who you're connected with at what points in your life,
Yeah, I
right?
think it just strictly comes back down to the not points in your life, but just people you're connected with.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that was huge because we got to see, you know, the stuff that Sue sees, crazy,
Yeah.
convoluted, weird, this, that, the other. Um, my stuff is convoluted in a different sense.
Yep.
And then we got to see the third avenue, which was, had its own hiccups to it. And then you were able to sort of, it was like a training ground,
Yeah.
right? So it was like, what are you doing?
Training ground or battlefield? Because I think it was a bit of both at points.
It was all the
And
above.
I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that, you were getting stuff thrown at you
Yeah.
in certain scenarios, and you guys were like, "What's happening right now?" Right? Like,
Yeah. Baptism by fire,
yeah,
right?
100%.
Um, and it, listen, it, like I said, it worked for me though.
Yeah.
Like that was what I liked. I like to be able to sit across from a table and talk about something, to
Yeah.
hear about the, what are the merits of the file? How does this work? Who are you going to structure it with? Blah, 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 blah. And I know my like underwriting knowledge just skyrocketed
Yeah.
during that. It wasn't probably until like a year ago that I was like, I lack in marketing. I don't
Well,
market
you and I have
myself.
had this conversation.
It's
We
just,
both did this. This kind of was born from us not having content,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And what are we going to talk about where we're going to sound intelligent? I think we sound intelligent most of the time, but not necessarily always. I think that we come off, as people who are learning as we go as
yeah,
well. There's still an element of that. I mean, there's realtors out there and there's mortgage agents, and I follow a couple of mortgage agents who are, the same thing as the realtor, where they go out there and they market themselves as experts. And then you get into conversations with them and you're like, wow, you fooled me.
mm-hmm,
Right. I don't ever want to be those
mm-hmm,
people. Right.
mm-hmm,
I always want to know, like, listen, the base of your business, the base of it is still technical.
mm-hmm.
Right. How you get that business and what you do with it, that business, is just as important as getting the business, because you can go out and market yourself until you're blue in the face.
Yeah.
Right. You can go
You
out
can
and say,
generate all the leads in the
generate all the
world.
leads in the world. If you can't close anything,
Yeah.
what good are you?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one thing that I think if I was starting from the get-go, I would have went to find a mentor immediately, which is way easier said than done.
Oh, yeah. And
And I sort of fell backwards into this.
yeah, you kind of did. But
And I had somebody else, because I was talking with somebody, whatever, 2, 3 years ago about that. And I was like, well, I got lucky. I kind of ended up finding somebody. And he was like, luck. He goes, you weren't lucky. You were the one who responded. You're the one who was proactive. You're the one
yep.
who did this, that, or the other. And I was like, ah.
But you were lucky in the sense that that person on the other end was willing to do it.
Yeah, and
Right.
it initially wasn't what we had
No, you guys are
expected.
nowhere near what you started. Like,
No,
like when you started, it was going to be a team, and it
but
ended up being
also, and
much
from the
more than that, I think.
get-go, Sue was just looking for somebody to run deals with, meaning she just wanted somebody to collab with.
Yeah.
She didn't want somebody who was green.
No,
And she didn't really expect it. And then I
no.
think when I got there and she was like,
You guys are way greener than I thought.
way
Way
green,
greener.
right?
And that's okay. Like, and again, like, listen, for those listening who are, thinking about this, it's never going to be perfect from the get-go.
No.
Ever. I mean, we're coming to you from positions of hindsight, right? When you're
Yeah.
starting your business, you have to do what you think is right for you, and you will learn along the way
So
what
prime
the
example was
hiccups
this
are.
weekend. We were talking about a clip something a short I posted,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Hey, we gotta clip these differently because 'cause they're leaving, um,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Now
it's
I know what
it's
you're talking
it's
about.
ending, like, open-ended or
Yes.
an ending on an incomplete thought," maybe is
Yeah.
what you said,
Yep.
and you're like, I don't like that."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, here's flip side. It's almost a cliffhanger. Maybe it pulls somebody to go and watch the full episode."
Yeah.
And you were like,
Never thought of that.
"Never thought of that." And I was like, "I don't know if that's true." I'm like, "We're spitballing here. We're just
Yeah.
figuring this out as we go." But I was like, "Here's kind of the."
But I don't think that's a bad listen, sometimes you gotta try stuff,
Yes.
right, to find out if it works, right? Like, like, there's no book on this. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's a million books out there that all tell you, different things. Somebody asked me this morning
Yeah.
yesterday, "What books do you recommend?" And I gave him 5 books, for real estate sales, and none of that may work for that person, right? I know who that person is. I think that a couple of those books that I recommended will really work for him, but at the end of the day, that's what's worked for me, right? And
So
and I'm different, right? Like, and listen, I don't like to name companies on here, but I'm going to name this. Revel Real Estate has built a business based on certain things, right? They've gone out and they've said this, and this. Now, I do my business differently in certain aspects of it, but they've been successful. Just because I do things differently than they do doesn't mean that either of them are wrong. It just means that they're different and they're attracting different people and different clientele, right?
yeah. So here's a thought I had that I think would be fun to try to build into an office culture, specifically for you guys. It would be this idea of trying new things and going for failures almost.
Okay.
Like to have your agents not be scared of the failure.
Oh, I encourage failure.
Right, but
But when
it's
you
one
say
thing
that
for
to
them to
somebody, that's
hear
very
it.
difficult for them to get their head around,
Very.
right?
And
It's okay
so
to fail, as long as
it
you
would
learn.
almost be like, "Hey, we're running a competition," or like a I don't know how to phrase this, but almost like a little challenge or like a survey, like, "I want you to try something new marketing-wise, and I want you to go and find me 5 no's."
Mm, that's an interesting thought.
Right?
Yeah,
To essentially be like, "I want you to find me 5 failures. I want you to go try this until you can get me 5 failures."
yeah, yeah.
Could could they do it, and how quickly could they do it, and w how would you feel at the end of it?
Well, I think then the follow-up question becomes is what did you learn from that,
That's, I think,
right?
the
And
thread you're trying to pull on.
listen, I think a new agent in particular, or even that person that wants to ramp up their business,
Yeah, the one trying to break
if
through.
if you have a fear of failure, you're not running a business. You're doing a job.
I would yeah, I think that was a huge portion of me early on.
Yeah,
Had a huge, fear of that.
yeah. That was me post-COVID.
Because also, you if you're entering a new industry and you've been in an industry that you've had success in, and an industry that you knew very well, you're coming into something brand new, you don't know anything, you think you have to know everything, and you're like, "Well, what if this."
It's funny you say that because I came from gaming.
Right.
I knew gaming inside out and backwards. When it came to slot machines and how a casino operated from the floor up, I knew it because I'd opened so many of these casinos and been involved in it. And I tried to apply a lot of what I learned from the casino to
Mhm.
this business. And there is an element to it, don't get me wrong, but casinos aren't about relationships except for the people who are members of their benefits programs.
Like the top tier kinda.
Well, anybody can get a membership, players club membership,
Oh,
right?
okay. You're not even talking about those tiers, you're talking about anybody in the players club.
Anybody in
Got
the
you,
players club, because then you've got contact, you can do these things, you can market to them, do
got you.
direct marketing and things, stuff like that. So that does work for a certain,
Mhm.
clientele because they've already shown you their hand. They want to be involved with something. They want that card. They want that rewards. How can you get them back in to spend more money to give them rewards so that there's this mindset of that? That doesn't work when you get into the real estate, except for the relationship portion of it. Once they give you their contact, same thing for the mortgages. So what happened was I had, and I will say this, and soon I say this all the time, and I bet you if you ask Elaine and Vicky who work for me, the same thing. Casinos were really good at training. They would give us
Really?
in particular, the OLG, the Ontario Lottery Gaming Corporation back in the day was what it was called. We had constant customer service training. They were so good at it. As a supervisor, I was sent to London
Mhm.
on a regular basis to go and get training on certain things, and it was top-notch customer service. I've never had better customer service training in my life,
Wow.
and they were really, really good at it. So I then had to scale back and say, "Okay, what can I learn from that? What can I do from the relationship standpoint of it?" And using that kind of mentality was what helped me get through those first few years, right? Having that partner come in, but then what can I do to do it? And the one thing that they taught was you're not going to please all the customers all the time.
Oh, that's a tough one to get
And we were
used to.
never taught the customer is always right. It was actually counter trained to us. There are times where you will have to tell the customer because we had obligations under law
Mhm.
to say, I can't serve you. And similar to what you've got with alcohol and gaming commission, right? When somebody over drinks, I can't serve you. Well, if you recognize a pattern of abuse in gaming, or somebody is self excluded from gaming, which means they're not allowed to enter a casino in the
Okay.
province,
Okay.
you have to be able to say no, and learning how to say no was just as important as learning all the skills of everything else that you
That's
do.
huge though. That is a big one that takes a while to learn, and I'm just starting to
Yeah,
get used to it.
but do you find that you recognize the triggers of what now?
Yeah, because there have been things that have caused whatever, a file to blow up or something to go awry at the last minute. That there have been these issues, these hiccups, these roadblocks, these road bumps, whatever you want to call them, that I go, well, I definitely don't want to go through that again. That was a pain in my butt.
Yeah.
And
Or, man, their underwriter at that lender sucks. I'm not going back to them,
yeah, yeah,
right? That kind of thing
things
you
like
learn
that.
goes along the way. For me, I hate doing farms. Right? To me, the idea of selling a farm and yet there's realtors out there. I talked to a broker record in when I was in Simcoe last week or the week before. He
Hmm.
popped into one of the offices to say hi. I know him from business, and I said to him, I said, well, what's up? He goes, I'm working on a farm deal. It's worth about 200 million bucks right now.
Sheesh.
And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, but that'll be the only thing I sell this year. I said to him, I said, I couldn't live like that. I just couldn't do it. Like, it's just not my,
Yeah.
not my thing. I don't know enough about it. I'm not good enough at it. I'm not, and I have no interest in learning it. Right. So, for me, when you take that step back as a new agent and you're trying to build your own culture, you have to be comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you're like,
That is a huge part of the growth.
if you stretch too much, then you're never
It's almost like
really,
building your identity in the
yeah,
industry.
you really are. Right? And that's a great way of putting it. You are building your identity because really, when you think about it, it's easy to say I'm a residential real estate
Uh
agent.
huh.
Okay. But I'm a condo residential. I'm a lakefront residential. I'm a first time home buyer residential. There's a million things that you can do within that thing. So, I can take a step back and say, I hate condos.
Hmm.
It's just not my cup of tea. It's not, I don't get it. I don't understand I get the concept and I can
Hmm.
do it. But really at the end of the day, it's not my bread and
It's the
butter.
same thing as when I see another mortgage agent advertise as we specialize in new construction, commercial, first time home buyers, whatever. Like
You're not specializing
and
anything.
I was
You're
like,
just using the word specialty in front of everything.
whoa, those are very, very, very different across the board. And I was like, so you're not using the same lenders for anything? You're
No, you're not specializing in anything,
no,
right? You're saying that you're a specialist by doing the funnel, right?
right.
Throw everything at the top of the funnel and hope that it feeds down into something,
Yeah, and
right?
then you look at like you're closing what 3% of the stuff you
What?
bring in.
Yeah, 2 to 3% closing if you're using a traditional funnel. Well, if
That's
you,
crazy.
yeah, so if you're
How much of your time is wasted there?
time, energy, because
Oh
this is not relationship building,
no.
right? It's relationship when you get to the bottom, right before it goes through the funnel part of the bottom part of the funnel. That's where the relationships build. Everything above that is not relationships.
Yeah, it's so the other thing that I have and this is a weird tangent, 'cause we were talking
Well,
about
that sounds a weird tangent.
is it?
Yeah, we're all over the place.
Um,
Okay.
we were talking about marketing,
Yeah,
and I realized that the relationships end up being one of your biggest filters
yeah,
for all of that, right? Like, if you talked about building a close relationship with whatever, 5, 10, 15, 20
sure.
people, they're the ones who end up filtering and saving you a lot of time.
Yeah,
It happened, somebody early on, he'd be like, "Hey, I'm sending you somebody, like, do you wanna talk to them? I don't know if they're gonna go anywhere." He would straight up be like, "I don't know if you wanna do this one."
yeah,
I'd be like, "Okay, okay." And then it got to the point where he'd be like, "Ah, I know what to look for."
yeah.
He got a
Because you've
lot
done it enough to
sure,
recognize it
and you've got this automatic filter put in place.
subconsciously in some cases.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it saves you time, it
Yep.
saves you this mental energy from juggling all this stuff, and it just you get, like, laser focused.
And I think that's the difference between like a year agent that's in a year and an agent that's in 5 years, right? That that's not a huge amount of time in your
Yeah.
career,
It's
but
like the length of university if you think about it,
yeah,
right? Or like a
high
high school.
school, university, whatever the case may
Think
be.
about how different you were from the starting of one of those
Oh,
to the back end of that, right? It's kinda
100
what you're doing. If you're
yeah.
not
And you're learning along the way and you're learning what works and what doesn't work. I mean, writing your first, like you said, your first paper in university
yeah.
versus what you wrote
Yeah.
coming out of year 4 in your graduate year are completely different, right?
Mainly because you've learned how much effort you need to put in, what the prof looks at, what do they
Yeah. My daughter,
you've gotten
Claudia,
savvy with it.
every once in a while she'll say to me, what, I'm just not confident in this paper. Can you proof it for me? So I'll proof it and then I'll send her back feedback and she'll say, okay, great. The prof says, the prof has agreed with me in the past with
On
your
this
comments
or
on this
that.
or that. And I said, well, that's what you got to build off of,
Yeah.
right? Build off the positives, be
Yes.
aware of the negatives,
Yeah.
right? And I think that professionals do this. A really, really good realtor or mortgage agent has that innate ability to just know within the first 5, 10 minutes if it's going to click, if it's going to come together for them, because they have that. For you guys, is when you get the paper. Like when you first see that file, right? When they, "Oh, I got great credit," and then you pull their credit score, and you're like, they're a 630 because of over leveraged or whatever. Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
so now all of a sudden, what you thought was an A client is a B, and now you're putting together a plan to get them from the B to the A next year, whatever the scenario is. You're learning that skill and that ability to make that
yeah.
determination
You gotten a lot
quickly.
better at looking for red flags.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think that, what, like we were talking off air about failing, right?
Mhm,
And it's okay to fail,
mhm.
right? Failure, you should encourage yourself to fail every once in a while because from failure comes the
Growth and clarity and
yeah, like,
lessons.
yeah, if you think you're succeeding at everything,
Mhm.
you're probably not succeeding as much as you think you are, right? And nobody's really giving you the hard truths of what you want to hear. I had a conversation with somebody last week who did not want to do something. And once I laid out what the options were of not doing what we were talking about, the, you could hear the clarity on the other end.
Interesting.
Like in the phone
You
call,
reframed.
I reframed it, but I also told this person, go get some other advice. Go and talk to this person. That person, and I knew the answer.
Mhm,
I never say go and talk to somebody without knowing what the answer is going to be.
mhm.
It's like that when you've got kids and your mom says, you say to your mom,
Oh,
and
yeah,
your mom says, if I'm asking the question, I already know the answer.
yeah.
I sent this person off already knowing the answer. And they came back to me and said, this person said, I've got to do it. And I said, now go and do it. And she's like, yeah. And it was just that moment of clarity, right? Like that moment where, she was like, you're right.
Mhm.
I came to you for, expertise and guidance and all of this stuff. You told me, made me go get reassurance, and now I'm back where I
I got a
started.
second opinion.
And now you can hear the confidence in that person because they went and did exactly that. Right, now all of a sudden it's a game changer to that person. So it's kind of funny that when you get into these scenarios where, agents start to look back, and I have an agent that calls me every single year, and I don't know if I've ever told you a
Mhm,
story in
mhm.
January.
Yeah,
I
every
got
year
no
she does
business.
it.
I got no business. I got no business. And I say, go back to your roots.
Yeah.
Go back to what's worked for you in the past. And by March, she's,
She's
annoying me because
humming
she's
and
calling me every day. She's like, I got this, and this. Not annoying me, but
yes.
she's always having those conversations. And usually by June, she calls me, she goes, you were right. And it's not about me being right. It's about her understanding that she has the ability, the skills, the
Yeah.
mindset, and clientele to go and do it. She just has to execute,
Yep.
right?
Or just remind herself
Remind
because
herself, whatever it's going
again,
to be.
you always get the shiny object and you go, "Well, maybe I should."
Yeah. Yeah. And yet, when you go and look at her marketing, the same thing since the day I bought this company every single year. She hasn't really changed it. She hasn't changed her approach. She's changed the delivery. And
Right.
that's all she's changed. But the same mentality carries through, and she does brilliantly with it, right? Like this is a person that makes 150 to $200,000 every year,
Yep.
right? Because she knows what works and isn't afraid to try something new. And if it doesn't work, throws it out the window and goes back and incorporates more of what it is.
Yeah.
She knows who she is. I'm not going to mention her because this is
Sure.
kind of one of the conversations, but if she listens to me, she'll say, "Yep, this exact thing happens every single year." And that's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
It's just a realization as you as a professional are now running a business and not having a job.
Not being an employee.
Let's take a break.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all?
All right, let's rock and roll. So we didn't touch on really the whole.
A whole premise because we kind of got side railed on what would we do differently, and I think you and I have completely different perspectives on this. So it'd be interesting to hear.
Mhm.
I think you've come to in the last 6 months, 7 months,
Yep.
a realization of who you want to be as a mortgage agent.
Definitely.
Okay, so if you were to sit down and say, Greg Skiba, mortgage agent from 4 years ago when you started at that
Yep.
other brokerage, to Greg Skiba sitting across the table from me in our office, what would you have done differently?
So I don't think I could do anything differently.
Okay.
I think part of what's happened builds the person you are.
All right.
But what I will say is the clarity that I've gotten in the last few months has shifted the direction and my output sort of.
Okay.
So I've gotten to a point where I'm fairly comfortable with the technical side of things.
Yep.
That part I've realized I can talk to most folks
Yep.
about this, and in many cases, you know,
Yep.
I'll I'll be able to hold my own.
Sure.
So that side I've gotten really comfortable with. I've learned that I am a really poor marketer.
Yep.
Okay. And so I've had to put a lot of effort into that. I've learned that I am good at building relationships,
Okay.
but they're with specific people and I have to really align with you.
Okay.
And I've given a lot of thought to the people that I enjoy working with. And I've said, I want to kind of not catch them all, but I want to collect more of those.
Yep.
Like we've talked about, we're building our tribe. We're building this culture individually of the people that I want to see or work with on a daily,
Sure.
regular basis, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
So I would say I've gotten laser focused with my marketing. I've given myself a marketing plan. So that means I come in and I give it some thought every week where I go, I want to post, X amount of things to Instagram. I want to post X amount of things to YouTube kind of going on in the
Sure.
background that hasn't really been
Yep.
advertised too much. But I was telling you this morning that that's gaining some weird traction.
Yeah. Very strange the way those numbers are coming out for
Very
us.
weird, right?
Yep.
And
Now,
so
hang on a second. I want to go back to that for a second before you move on. Are those shorts in our or on yours?
on mine,
Okay. All
I
right.
don't know that we have.
We do have a short section on there, but I don't think we've posted anything
No,
in
I don't
there.
think I've cross posted anything. I've
That's
only
kind of what I was
posted them to
asking.
our Instagram.
Okay. All right.
But
Yeah, put them on there.
yeah,
That was just a sidebar because I meant to ask you that earlier. So, but I didn't mean to take it away from your thought. I
no,
apologize.
no, because this is all good. So I've gotten more of like a a plan or like a cadence thing in place where I'm
Yep.
going, hey, this is what I'm trying to put out in a perfect week.
Yep.
I want to put out this, 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 and this,
Yep.
and I want to talk about this, 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 and this.
Right.
And I'm getting a little more focused on that. And so with my relationships that I'm building with my people, same thing. I don't want people who are, I don't want to use the word wasting my time, but I don't want to, I want to have a good filter in place on that end.
Okay.
Somebody who understands
You.
me and at a minimum kind of what they should be looking for. So
Right.
right. So
Yep.
you're building this together. So
Yeah.
if I can coach a realtor to maybe suss out a few little things here and there, that
Sure.
saves them a tremendous amount of time as well.
Sure. 100%.
Um, so the third piece, I guess, ties into um, just outreach, general
Yep.
outreach. And for a while, I didn't do a whole ton of that. Something that you've talked about from the beginning was reaching out to our own network,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Just reminding everybody what you do or letting them know that you've started to do
Exist.
this, that you exist,
Yeah.
right? And we've talked about how in the beginning when you're starting something, there's this fear of whether it's rejection, fear of not knowing enough, right? We kind of
Confidence,
yeah.
everything that comes with it. Yeah.
And so that was the big other shift in the last few months was just reconnecting with everybody,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, I'm around. This is what I do these days. Been at this for a little bit. Uh, here I am. I
Yeah.
exist."
Yeah.
And so what I've done is I've taken out some of the ambiguity to my week,
Okay.
and I've said, in a perfect week, what would I like to get done? And I come in and I go, okay, let's and you break it up into bite-sized chunks,
Yeah.
obviously. You don't say I need to talk to 100 people this week. You go, what do I got to get done Monday?
Yep.
Today. Today it's and I take the time on a Sunday now to say, what does my whole week look like?
Yeah.
And I put this in the calendar and this in the calendar and this in the calendar. And you don't make it overwhelming. You go, I gotta, you know, message 5 people today.
Yeah. Bites.
Not
Bite size.
500.
Yep.
And if you're feeling it, you got the momentum, you touch you message 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That's gravy.
Yeah.
Icing on the cake. You've done a little extra, but tomorrow, don't come in expecting to do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just come in and do 5.
Yeah.
And so I would say if, if I had to go back, it would be focus on and tell myself something. It'd be focus on the small bite-sized day-to-day actions that you can then replicate over and over and over and over again. Like we've talked about building the boring business.
Yeah.
You come in, you go, yeah, I'm just gonna do this. I'll talk to these people, message these people, talk about this, talk about that. And it's about starting those conversations. I had somebody on Instagram that I was talking to, just a different realtor. She started reaching out about something. This conversation just went a random way.
Right.
And then, you know, you're just building a relationship with them and you're just saying, hey, like we're in this working together. Like anything you need from me today?
Yeah. I think that all goes back to, I think we've talked about it in a couple of segments, is the relationship aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
So much of what it does is brings us back to how can I define and refine those relationships,
Yeah.
right?
And I think early on, and I've said it, the brokerage, we kind of just had the gotta catch them all mentality,
Yeah.
right? Like all the Pokemon, you gotta catch them all. And and it's no fault on them. I think that was how the lessons and what they were teaching was coming across.
Yeah.
It was, hey, get out in front of all these people and you got to service all these people. And then as you start doing it, you go, it's just a lot easier if I can call up the realtor who sent me the referral and say, hey, dude, can you kind of breathe down on their neck about this and that? They're dragging their heels a bit, and I know they really trust you, and
Yeah.
you can just be authentic, and you can have a regular conversation with them.
Yeah.
So I've started really seeking that kind of stuff. Just
Which I honestly, I think is great because you're doing exactly what we coach. as leaders,
Right, but it takes a while for it to sink in, right?
because everybody comes into this business saying, "I'm gonna reinvent the business. I'm
Yeah,
gonna reinvent the wheel. I'm
sure.
gonna do something different." And then it really comes back to, you know, th you know, let's not reinvent the wheel, let's grease the wheel,
Yeah,
right? I know what I've gotta do. How can I do it easier, faster, smarter, more efficiently,
yeah.
whatever term you wanna use for it.
Mhm.
And also, let's put the right size tires on the car in the
Yeah,
aspect
I think
of
that's a really good thing to say. So I would argue that I've almost, I've said I've got a lot of clarity and I'm almost getting really focused, but it's almost like you have to build from the ground up the right way.
yeah,
It's like, "Hey, I built this structure, but I used wet sand.
yeah,
This time I'm gonna use concrete."
yeah.
If that makes sense?
It totally makes sense because I think that everybody comes in and listen, I think there's something to be said coming in full of piss and vinegar
Yeah.
and saying, "I'm gonna be a disruptor."
Yeah.
Okay? I'm gonna use Zillow in real estate as the perfect example. Zillow came to Canada. They were gonna be the complete disruptor. They were gonna challenge Realtor.ca. I've been hearing that for 10 years. Guess what? Realtor.ca is still the biggest
Thriving.
platform in this country.
Yeah.
Nobody can touch it. There's nobody that can
Well,
touch it,
it
right? So being a disruptor is great, but it's not gonna give you longevity.
it's also, um, being, kind of into this industry for a couple years now, and like I said, I was a poor marketer, and you start to put a lot more focus into marketing, and you start to see how prevalent it is in everything. And
Yeah,
so when Zillow came out, that's how they built their marketing. They said, "We're going to disrupt it."
yeah,
And so they're interviewing probably, with newspapers and this and that, and they're saying, "Hey, do you want a new story about a really cool tech company?" And that becomes the narrative
yeah.
that they've potentially forced themselves.
Well, when you see mergers and acquisitions in big companies, in a lot of cases, that's a company recognizing that somebody else built something better, and now I'm just gonna bring it in,
Huh, yeah, I never thought of that, eh?
right? Like, look at the Paramount Netflix thing right now. Paramount Plus is a great platform. It doesn't even come close to competing with Netflix.
No.
So what do? They buy it.
Yeah.
They incorporate that
They say, "Well,
into.
we're done competing with you."
Yeah, we're just gonna assimilate you,
Mhm.
but that's the same principle as what we do. Like, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna say, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna Greg does this. Well, I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna do it in my thing, and I'm gonna try and build it." And then all of a sudden, I realize that I'm just gonna bring Greg into my team.
Mhm.
I'm gonna, have that person in my team, and it doesn't matter, not necessarily trade, but you know, photography. There was a point in my career, do you know I took my own photography? I did my own pictures. I bought a DLSR camera. I'm not a photographer. I know
Mhm.
nothing about it.
Mhm.
The hell was I doing? What was I thinking? Right?
Yeah.
I learned. We brought in a photographer.
Mhm.
Why? Because I was spending a fortune doing it outside, and it's easier this way when
Yeah,
we
bring
when
it
you when
in-house.
you bring it in house,
Yeah.
right? It's the same sort of principle. When you have learned what you can do in
Yeah.
house, and there are still things that I'm sure you go outside for, you bring in a professional for,
Mhm.
right? That kind of mentality, that mindset of recognition. And I think that's a word that we don't talk about enough in this business is recognition of what works and doesn't work. We just keep trying and trying and trying and trying and forcing that square peg into the round hole. And being able to just say, nope. And we do it, we talk about it with clients.
Mhm.
But we never
Mhm.
say it with what
It
we're
is. It's
doing
recognition,
in
you're right.
the back end of our business and saying, hey, I would do this differently now. Right.
Yeah.
I stopped doing certain things because I know I wasn't, I could do it, but
Yeah.
what I put
And then
together versus what
that
somebody.
right there, it's those 4 words, but the way you said it, it's like, "I could do
Yeah.
it,
The
but
second question is, should I be
should
doing
I
it?
do it?" Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so if you were to be restarting your business today,
Yeah.
let's pretend you didn't have to run a brokerage.
Okay.
Because 'cause let's just pretend you were just Steve the realtor.
Yep.
You're 20 years in and you're like, "Hey, I wanna break through to the next
Oh, yeah.
level."
Yep.
And you are somebody who has hummed along solo,
Yep.
okay? What would you be doing right now to break through to the other side?
Surround myself with other professionals.
Okay. In what way?
Mentorship.
Okay.
from somebody who doesn't gain anything from the mentorship, okay? Somebody who takes you under their wing to make you better, okay? There's all sorts of mentors out there that will,
Charge you.
charge you. If somebody's investing in you for you, it's going to always be better than somebody who, has a financial incentive because they're not necessarily doing it for the right reason. That's one. The people that I use professionally would have been way more refined and I would use way more of them.
In
So
sense of your
marketing, advertising, all of that stuff.
okay.
I wouldn't have tried to do any of it myself.
Okay.
Okay. I
Treating it
w-
like a business.
Treating it like a business. I would have said, okay, who's my marketing person? Who's my photographer? Who are my home inspectors?
Mhm.
And I would have put together a team right from the beginning
Mhm.
because I think that team aspect in your transaction is far, far, far more beneficial than me saying I'm going to recommend, three names. And I can't stand this as something in Ontario that you know, Rico tells us, oh, you can't solo promote. Okay. I don't know whether they still do it. I would rather have a team of people that I know when push comes to shove, have your back. And I know what their work expertise is like. I know what their results are like, and I know you know, what the risks and rewards are of having that person on our team. That would be two, and three. I would have put way more time into building relationships.
Yeah,
Way more time.
it just comes back in spades. I think back to there was something that an issue we were dealing with end of November. I think I was vaguely telling you about this one, and I had a law clerk that I didn't know handling the transaction,
Yeah,
but her and we jumped on the phone because it's just how you do it. I wanted
yeah,
to clear up any. I didn't want to play
sure.
telephone with the client. Anyways, um, she was in my corner, and I had the law clerk in my corner, which was tremendous because it was a
I know the deal.
yeah, there was some stuff going on, and I can't even explain how nice it is to be able to say, look, client, the other professional in this transaction thinks I've done a really good job, and they think it's this third party
Yeah,
that is giving us the headaches. Whereas, in many cases in my world, if the lawyer or the law clerk or somebody at that point puts any sort of doubt in the client's head, they're going to go, whoa, whoa, whoa.
yeah.
And we're fortunate we have our relationship here with the lawyers, which has,
Sure.
and that's where I first got to see
The benefits.
how nice this is.
Yeah,
Not only because they trust you, they go, okay, you'd hear about it when somebody would be in a situation that required a unique mortgage.
yeah,
And a lawyer would be like, why are you in this type of mortgage? I could get you something better at the 11th hour,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whereas our lawyers that trust us, they go, okay, you're in this.
For whatever reason.
There's a reason.
Yeah,
I'm not here because I don't know the full extent. I'm
yeah,
not here to consult with you on that.
yeah,
I just know that I trust the agents across the hall.
yeah.
And if you're doing this, so I got to see firsthand. Okay, when they trust you and you trust them, holy Hannah,
Trust is everything.
it's huge. Or uh,
Not everything, but
it's it's pretty
it's
much
huge.
everything
Yeah,
because the other one is like short timelines.
yeah. Well, can you get it done?
I walk down the hall
Yeah.
and
Hey,
and
I gotta
and,
close this in 7 days. Can you make it happen?
and he gives us one of these when
Yeah.
he kind of his head is like, well, can
I
you
can do it.
can
Can
you
you
get
give me
me
9?
can you get me the instructions in 2 days? It's like
Yeah.
I'll get you
Yeah.
instructions today. Like whereas you call a different lawyer out of the blue and
Yeah.
they're gonna go, who are you?
Yeah. 100%.
No,
But it
I want 10 business days.
yeah, but it's the same with every aspect of the transaction, right?
Yes.
Like, so for me, as the realtor and like, we've talked about being the first point. We're usually the first point,
Quarterback.
right? We're the quarterback.
Yeah.
We're managing all of the plays. I call the mortgage agent and I say, listen, we're in competition. We've done our pre-work.
What can we get away with
What can I
to
get away with for a timeline to get a final approval? Right? Because I'm not doing, unless you tell me, signing a waiver saying I'm going to take this chance, I'm not doing that.
Mhm.
But if you say to me, "You know what? I only need 2 days. I've already got them so far pre-approved. They've already got the paperwork. Now we're just doing
Mhm.
that." Whatever the case may be. Or I call my home inspector and say, "Can you do an inspection first thing tomorrow morning?" "Oh, I'm scheduled. I
I'll
can
squeeze you.
let me figure out what I can do,
Sure.
and I'll get back to you." Right? Once you build that trust with your team,
Mhm.
it makes everything go so much smoother. And you get to that point where the consumer says, "You got a lawyer?" "Yep." "Works down the hall for me." "You got a home inspector?" "Yep." "Here's the guy's name."
That happened.
Right?
So I had clients who came in here to meet me in office, oh man, last year, year before, whatever, doesn't matter. It was on a Friday, and our lawyer popped in just to see
Say
me
hi.
end of day. And they were like, "Hey, like, who's this?" And I was like, "Ah, it was so and so and blah blah blah,
Yep.
potentially they're gonna be needing you." And they eventually went to go buy their house. The realtor had his recommendation for a lawyer, and they were like, "Well, no, we're using because we've met him,
Yep.
we like him,
We're comfortable.
and Greg says that he uses them often, so that's who we're doing."
Yeah.
Um, it's tremendous.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that we've tried to build in here,
Yeah,
with the lawyers, with the mortgage team. Those 3 are the core. I mean, an inspector's the 4th, but they're pretty independent,
they are. Yeah,
right? They're kind of a different animal because they have to do so many of them to survive, right?
yeah, and also like
There's accountability issues
but also
too.
like if I
Uh,
go down the hall to talk to them about something like between the lawyers and us, like there was a little more back and forth between the three of
yeah,
us.
and I agree with that. I just think for me, when I look back now, if I were to focus on those 3 things,
Yeah,
I think my career pa I think if honestly though, and that being said, I think if I had focused on those 3 things, I wouldn't be sitting here today
it is very interesting to think about, eh? Because you
because I
potentially would have been sitting there as a realtor humming along doing X amount of
significantly
volume.
yeah, significantly more volume, and I wouldn't have necessarily wanted to leave that behind, right? But and I say this to new realtors, like I have it
I'm gonna say maybe.
maybe I have
I
an addiction to teaching,
Yeah,
right?
I think
And
there's
there's more to it for me,
yeah, and you
right?
also really like the, like, legislative side,
Yeah, I do like the government and the
the
policy
government
and all those
and
stuff.
all of that stuff because and this is something that I've picked up from you, it is like you just you never know what's gonna happen and you gotta protect yourself.
Yeah. Listen, I live in a world of what happens if,
Yeah.
right? And that's broker really
Mhm.
mentality. Um, but realistically, I just think that when you're building your business, if you focus on, on learning as much as you can about the business, but really focusing on the consumer and having that team, those 2 things, because you're not gonna know everything at the beginning,
No.
right? And even as somebody who does 5 or 6 deals a year, you don't do enough volume to encounter all the scenarios. People say to me all the time, "Well, how do you remember all this stuff?" Like, my secretaries make fun of me all the time, admin staff. They're like, "You just spew legislation." That's because I do it every single day, right?
Yeah,
Like,
comes up all the time.
you may only see me talk about legislation once, but I could have had that conversation 3, 4, 5, 6 times already that week, right? Like, so it's one of those things where, like, once you become an expert at something, and legislation is one of those things that I'm very, very, humble enough to admit that it is very difficult to learn.
Mhm.
It's very difficult to stay on top of. And you know, I I look at people who get involved in that process. I don't envy politicians because everything moves so damn slowly with them that it would drive me crazy. But that they go through that growth. Politicians is a great place to compare yourself in your business wise. And
What do you mean?
everybody goes in with visions of grandeur when they get elected. I'm going to change the world.
Okay. Yep.
I'm going to
Their
introduce
platform is
legislation. Their
boom.
platform is this.
Mhm.
I'm going to do this. And then they get there and they realize that the wheels of the policy
Bureaucracy.
bureaucracy move at a turtle's pace. So they're going to, go through this exercise, and then after when they go to get it reelected, they're like, oh, I should have done this, this, and this, and this. I should have made this connection. I should have done this, like
Mhm.
all of those steps. And then they got to go and get reelected. Well, we get reelected every time we get a new client.
Mhm.
right? So you're going through that exercise. And if you don't have that exercise laid out and spelled out in a system that you learn as part of the job aspect of your business,
Mhm.
not the business aspect of your business,
Yeah, I
it's
guess
going to
we
be
should
challenging.
probably make that clear that you will always have a job aspect to it,
Yes, 100%. It's never going to go away.
right? You especially in the beginning, you will not be able to be the business owner delegating everything.
No, there's going to be
Um,
things that you're going to have to take on because of attrition,
yeah.
right? You're not going to have a limitless, pile of money to go and play with,
And if you did, you
right?
wouldn't be doing this.
Right. But if you're, for example, spending, you go into this and you've got $5,000 spare,
Mhm.
you're going to struggle if you're going to go out and start spending money on everything. What can I do?
Yeah.
Where can I save? What can I do? And run it like a business,
Yeah.
right? So that's a lot of talking about where to begin. And I still think that a plan is the most important thing that you have going in. And if you're working with a brokerage and you don't have a plan, pick up the phone, talk to the broker, talk to
Find a
the
mentor,
broker,
find a
find a
buddy.
mentor, find a buddy, find an accountability group, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. Get in the office and start talking to people.
Yeah, that's huge.
All right. See you next week.
Like